This is gonna be cool.
The topics and opinions expressed on the Dudes and Beer podcast are intended for an audience of 18 and up and are solely those of the host and guest. They neither reflect the opinions or values of either the sponsors of Dudes and Beer or your mother. I mean, seriously, have you ever heard these guys? They'll talk about anything.
Whoa, hey, you think they're gonna show it? They'll probably just blur it out. Whoa, check it out, Beavis.
Grab your beverages and turn up your interweb. Solving the world's problems 12 ounces at a time. It's Dudes and Beer.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another awesome episode of the Dudes and Beer podcast. I am here, Chris Jordan, your host, with Randy Jordan, my brother, once again here in Katy, Texas. How you doing tonight, Randy?
Hey, what's up, everybody?
Yeah, well, we're going to have a fun night this evening, talking about some really serious stuff, actually. This case going on in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, with Shaquana Spears, who has been arrested for spanking her children. And the many cases like this going on across the country, and the concept of raising children as a village. It takes a village to raise a child, and whether or not that is even still applicable in this day and age. And we will find out more about that whenever we come back from this message from our sponsor.
Hey, are you a musician? Do you play guitar, bass, or synthesizers? Are you a studio engineer looking for that different sound? Well, fret no longer. Austin Hot Mods is there for you. From Boss to Ibanez, DoD to EHX and more, Austin Hot Mods provides over 50 different modifications and customizations to some of the most popular guitar pedals on the market, from vintage to modern. So if you're looking for that boutique custom sound on a Craigslist budget, look no further. Contact Austin Hot Mods today and mention that you heard it here on the Dudes and Beer podcast for 5% off your first guitar pedal modification. Visit them online at austinhotmods.com. Texas owned and operated and home of the Mod of the Month deal. That website again is austinhotmods.com.
And we are back. Well, as I said, we're talking about a topic that, at least to me, as someone who has dealt with children, worked with children to kindergarten, like I've said to numerous people and numerous times on this podcast, I've taught everybody age 4 to 40 at some point, and technically, the only difference is by the time you're 40, you should know better than to pull people's hair.
Right.
Technically, that's really the only difference between a 4-year-old and a 40-year-old. 4-year-olds will throw some of the greatest wisdom you've ever heard at you, and just some of the most common sense logic that you're like, damn, man, you just can't argue with that.
Right.
I mean, it's a 4-year-old, but shit. And on that, it's the fact of it takes a village to raise a child. Now, I'm going to play us a clip here. It's from MSNBC host.
We have never invested as much in public education as we should have, because we've always had kind of a private notion of children. Your kid is yours and totally your responsibility. We haven't had a very collective notion of these are our children. So part of it is we have to break through our kind of private idea that kids belong to their parents or kids belong to their families, and recognize that kids belong to whole communities. Once it's everybody's responsibility and not just the households, then we start making better investments.
And that is Melissa Harris Perry from MSNBC. That clip came out a couple years ago whenever I was on broadcast. And it was one that, I will admit, we used ad nauseum on the show that I worked on. Because it really it loses some of the impact if you're not watching it, because at the end of it is the message, lean forward.
Right. Yeah, I remember that.
Which is a message that is actually from communist propaganda. And, you know, the whole concept in America of discipline and where it has gone, not just in our public education system, but where it's gone with parenting and the whole concept of parenting over the last few decades has been pretty extreme where it's come to. Wouldn't you say, Randy?
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. It's you know, when I first heard that clip, like you said, a year or two ago, it was pretty mind blowing that kind of mentality can, you know, we have to get people away from this crazy idea that, you know, children belong to their parents.
Yeah, that they belong to their family,
right? You know,
not to
that what you know. That the state owns our children?
Yes. Well, the collective.
Yeah.
The collective.
A.K.A. the state.
A.K.A. the state. Right. Exactly. And that, to me, is the disturbing thing. And it's really come to a point, since then, it's rampant. You hear about it almost weekly, where some parent is in trouble with their local government, be it police, CPS, with a school, whatever,
right.
For disciplining their child.
And
not just disciplining their child. Sometimes, like, there have been cases of arrest here in Houston where, and one not too far off, I want to say it was Deer Park, where a mother got arrested for literally letting her kid go 3 blocks down the road and play at the public park.
Right.
You know?
I remember reading about that. You know, I'd say probably 6 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
I did a lot of research into homeschooling.
Mm-hmm. I remember,
and was really. I mean, there were some very practical reasons why we couldn't do it at the time. And it, you know, to do it and do it properly, it takes an enormous investment in time, and attention. But you know, what was really shocking in the things that I read, not just in Texas, but in all the states, even the states that are favorable or more favorable towards things like homeschooling.
Yeah,
you know, just how number one, what a huge stigma it has against it.
Yeah.
And this is where I'm going with this. Not that this is all about homeschooling, but
take it wherever.
The reaction from the establishment when you go in to tell them this, you know, just reading horror stories from countless parents who go into their school, say they want to pull their kids out and start homeschooling them. All of a sudden, they're getting visits from CPS. Okay. Repeat it.
Well, you know, and what's funny is Mike Davis, my very good friend up in Pennsylvania,
I know Mike,
made a very interesting point about 4 episodes ago now, whenever we did the episode about Society of No Consequences and the teacher here in Houston who was sleeping with her 13-year-old student and got pregnant by him.
Right.
And was facing charges. And he was like, you know, whenever you send your kid to school, especially a state school, anything like that, a public school, you are fully surrendered. Like, it is a custodial surrender. You are technically making them custodian of your child at that point. And to be able to pull them out or anything like that, to be able to just come and get them, it doesn't really work that way.
Right.
You know? And not many people realize that you are signing a release of surrender to your children, and that you are giving them custodial privilege over your child while they have them. And it's, to me, I mean, to come back to Shaquana, the case in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, this woman, her husband was incarcerated in May. I'm not exactly sure what the charges were. The charges are really spurious. It doesn't really matter what the charges were, why he's in jail. He could be in there for dealing crack. He could be in there for embezzlement. He could be in there for crossing the road the wrong way without a license. Doesn't really matter why he's in there. The fact is, this is now a single mother of 6 children.
Effectively. Yeah.
Effectively a single mother of 6 children, working her damnedest. Now, I mean, we know what that's like. We were brought up by a single mom.
Right.
Sure, Dad was there. We saw Dad every other weekend. You know, Dad was definitely a part of our life. He was definitely a part of our discipline. You know, all we ever had to hear was, wait till your daddy hears about this.
Mm-hmm.
You think you're in trouble with me, wait till your dad hears about it. You know, all we ever had to hear from Dad is, we ain't going to be here all day, boy. That meant, oh, damn, dude, he will kick my ass, like, as soon as we leave this place.
Right.
But it is hard on a single parent. It's very hard, and there's a lot of stuff that slips through the cracks. But what these kids did goes beyond, man. I mean, we did some stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I did some stuff. You know, good God, I set fire to my neighbor's back fence, you know, because I was by myself during the day. Total accident. Didn't do it on purpose, but ended up on paper because of it until I was 18. Sealed record. Guess not anymore. But and that's something that a single parent, that's something that any parent has to deal with. Even dual parents, even a full parental household has to deal with issues like that. But this mother came home to find out that her 3 sons were influenced by their punk kid friends to actually go and break and enter into the neighbor's house and steal some stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know that they were, you know, how, to what extent they were influenced. She said they were. She said she suspected that she'd never had issues with her oldest, who was 13.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yeah, like you said, you know, she comes home from work. It's in the evening. To see, you know, someone slipping out of the side window of their house, turns out to be one of her kids. You know, basically she comes home. Neighbors had seen them coming home with bags full of stuff while Mom was at work. Mom gets home, the kids start scattering, and yeah, she finds bags full of stuff that the kids apparently had taken from another kid.
Yeah.
You know, a few houses down the street.
Yep.
And had broken in to steal this stuff.
And she, as Mike Davis would put it, began paddling up the Nile.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't make me start paddling up the Nile, boy.
She, you know, yeah, she did. She said that, you know, she was just, you know, she gave some really good.
Well, she gave some very cogent points and defenses as a parent.
Right. I mean, you know, she said she grabbed a belt, started with the youngest.
Yeah.
And, you know, it doesn't say to, you know, how long she did that. The thing is, and this is, I guess, what gets me, is that, you know, she said she started paddling them, and then come to find out that it wasn't a belt like she said, but an RCA cable that she grabbed.
Okay.
And, you know,
you're probably out of the bag of jack shit.
Nah, I don't know.
You're going to steal this? You know what, you little bastard?
Yeah, well,
here's what you're going to get with
it.
And hey, and here's the thing. Yeah, I heard somebody respond on a talk show yesterday, and I'm trying to remember the name of the talk show. It's on 9:50 a.m. It's Max something, and it's at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And man, it was so good. It was so good. Like the way that they approach the show, the way that they talk back and forth. It's like 3 hosts
here in Houston.
Yeah. And it was just so well done. And they were taking callers, and this one guy was like, "Listen, okay, so here's why discipline works." Because as a kid, you have now enraged an adult so much that they are irrational.
Right. You know, that's
and there's some point to that, but at the same time, it's one of those things of discipline works because you learn to respect the person that's doing that
right.
to you. And eventually, if done properly. Now, granted, Mom lost her sauce sometimes.
It happens.
She's a single mom.
Sure.
She's been, I mean, good God, man, the woman worked 2 jobs, went to college, and, you know,
right.
Stuff like that. So she was a little frazzled at the end of the day, and as she came home and some shit happened, she may just give you a smacking.
Right. You know, that's I've never been a one to grab something and discipline my kids in that way. However, it has happened.
Yeah.
It's not something that I usually pull out first or second or third.
No, a nice hand. All it typically takes, at least as a kid, at least as like whenever you're talking 4 to 8.
Right.
All it should take is one good pop.
Right.
One good pop, enough to scare them and to say, my God, that might happen again right now.
Right. You know what this mom dealt with, and with her kids. She seemed, from what I've read anyway, seemed genuinely surprised.
Yeah.
And taken aback by what they did.
Yeah.
That this was something really out of the norm for their ordinary behavior.
If you can, I'm not going to lie. I've stolen stuff. I got caught stealing stuff from friggin' Kroger when I was a kid. And that's a scary experience. And it's scary enough whenever that happens. But imagine the utter panic of a mother to know that it's not like her kid came home with like a roll of certs that he stole from the store.
Right.
He didn't come home with a toy from the store. He didn't steal some toys from Kroger like I did at a very young age.
Right.
These kids are in their mid-teens and they broke into somebody's home.
Right. Broke into someone's home, broke into a neighbor, someone who they knew from school. I can only imagine the spectrum of just enraged emotions that this mom had to go through. This sickening embarrassment, this just rage at their kids. But the other thing too, and she mentioned this in one of her interviews, is one of the biggest things that went through her mind is that her, because of what they did, her kids could have wound up killed.
Yeah.
They
could have wound up shot.
They could have walked in.
She could have walked home to corpses.
Right.
Yeah.
Or someone could have been in their house.
Yep.
Which is perfectly justifiable. Hear people banging around in their house, stealing stuff, bagging stuff up.
That's technically the only time it's justifiable homicide. Is that somebody's either attacking you or they are inside of your personal property.
Right.
Yeah.
And if some homeowner with a gun happened to be there and defending their property, one of them could have gotten shot or gotten hurt, or could have had the police called on them while they were in the act and gotten shot,
been right there,
tasered, whatever,
or been right there with their daddy.
Right. All of these things are going through her head too.
Yeah.
And this utter fear for her kids. All of this stuff fuels, I think, what she did. Now, to pick up an RCA, if it was a belt and she said, "Boys, you're each going to line up, and you're gonna see what happens when you act this way," because there is no justification whatsoever for what you've done.
Yep.
And if that had been the case, even fueled by a little bit of anger for what they've done, a little bit, in my mind, maybe a little bit of righteous anger, those kids probably deserved a belt to their butt.
Yep.
I would have gotten it. You would have gotten it.
At least in our upbringing, yes. Absolutely.
Anybody that I grew up knowing would have gotten it.
And in school. Even. And that's where this really goes. That's where this conversation really goes.
I got popped twice. Once in second grade and once in junior high. I was jacking around in the gym, in the locker room, and
I remember.
I forget what I did. It was something stupid, but it justified me getting a pop from a couple of pops from Coach.
Yeah.
In the office there, discipline, and that was one thing that at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
I don't even think you. Well, I know you don't.
You don't anymore.
Fill that out
you
anymore.
You don't get that pink piece of paper.
But you got that little slip the beginning of the year.
That was the first one Mom had. Mom didn't want the nurse's form. She didn't want the school lunch form. She wanted that pink form first.
Yeah. No,
you give me the pink one. Where's the pink one?
I'm filling this out, and I want you to know if they've got to invoke this while you're at school, you're going to get it when you get home,
yeah,
too.
If you waste their time and make them take the time to pop your ass, I'll pop you when you get home. And then I'll tell your daddy, and he'll pop you on his weekend.
And, here's something that's funny, okay? Some listeners may know or not, but, I've got 3 kids. My oldest is 22, my daughter, and my 2 boys.
Love you, Megan.
Yeah, and my 2 boys are 15 and 13. And...
right in this target zone.
I can almost tell you with absolute certainty that there was nary a belt ever taken to Megan.
Yes.
Okay? With almost absolute certainty. It's just never, a little pop on the rump, anything like that. But other than that, no. Because, call it what you want. Call it some just old school... I don't know, just being old school. I'm a big man. I'm not gonna pop my daughter. I left that for her mom to do.
Yeah.
I discipline in other ways. We found other ways to discipline, but corporal punishment, as they used to call it, was not something that I really engaged in, and really even much with my boys.
No. Hey, don't get me wrong. It's not like Mom walked around the house with the belt hanging on her hip waiting for the... It wasn't like Eddie Murphy delirious with, with the shoe.
Right.
But I did get popped a couple times with the shoe.
Yeah, yeah, of course. And I'll be the first to say...
It was right there.
When the boys are cutting up and picking on each other and all that, SWAT to the butt. It happened. I'm not going to...
Absolutely. Whenever things got too much.
And... So the funny thing is not even talking to them, and my boys aren't violent. They're no more violent than I think anyone else. I just asked them just off the cuff. Like I said, I have not been a paddling or a spanking. That's not been my MO for discipline.
Yeah,
found other ways to discipline, but. I just asked them this afternoon, hey, just want to get y'all's opinion. If 2 kids, y'all's age, because these kids are right at their age.
Yeah.
2 kids y'all's age did something really, really bad. What do you think spanking? What do you think about spanking? And one of them, the oldest, was like, "You mean would it be child abuse?" I was like, "Yeah." What do you think? He was like, "No." And the youngest turned around and said, "No, that's just discipline." And I was
right. That's right.
And I was like, all right,
good job, Pop.
Not that, like I said, I want to be perfectly clear, abundantly clear. I can count on one hand the number of times I've had to discipline them with anything stronger than a swat on the butt.
Yeah.
Between the 2 of them. Okay.
Yeah. But see, that's the thing. That's the key. Is that when done properly, that's all it takes. Is a few times to drive the point home, because it's the right time, it's the right moment, and it makes the impression.
Yeah, and I think
and that impression stays.
Yeah, I think so. So, and I think, when you pair that with other things, like trying your best to give a good example, or using teachable moments when things come up, and you say, look at this, boys, or kids, or, whatever. I try constantly to teach them those lessons so that they don't have to go through bad things.
That's right.
And the outpouring of support for this mom in her disciplining of her kids
has been huge.
It's been enormous.
Yeah. I mean, dude, some guy came and randomly bailed her out.
Right. Yeah. He's like, An
angel came and bailed her out.
Yeah, it was like I was at the at the police office. I was bailing out a friend or whatever, and
saw the story on the news.
Saw what was happening with this lady and what she had been arrested for. It's not like the kids called.
Nope.
Okay, she was at I don't remember what day this took place. Maybe it was a Friday.
It was Thursday, I think. Or
maybe it was a Thursday.
It was just a few days ago.
You know, it was on a Thursday. The people that the kids had, the people who owned the home that the kids had broken into didn't come home until Sunday.
Yeah.
So they went and took the stuff back, but not everything was there.
Yep.
So there were still things that were missing, which is what prompted them. If they had everything, then I think those people would have just called it even, said, okay, you know, we're not filing anything. But because there was still stuff missing, they and presumably maybe other kids involved, they called the police.
Yeah.
Which resulted in her being in court the next day.
Yeah. Because there were marks on the kids' legs.
Well, no, they were in court because the kids had stolen stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's when the marks were noticed. And so, I mean, they'd been there for a few days. Welts and things like that. So that's when people that's when the authorities started asking questions. It's like, oh, well, she hit me, and and so then that's when perhaps a little heavy-handed CPS comes in, and the authorities come in, and now the woman's in jail, or she was anyway.
And has a criminal record now.
She was until Wednesday. That's when she was bailed out. She was in jail. Her kids taken away. All 6 of her children.
Yep.
Taken away.
Yeah.
Over something that, could she have used something different to spank them with? Yes. Why didn't she? Don't know. That's not
the real question. And like I said, I've caught more than my fair share of licks in my life. And I've got my scar.
Yeah.
Left heel. And I distinctly remember the doctor's words. I was getting a spanking, and I can't even remember what it was for, but I'd done something pretty damn major because Mom went to go get the belt. It wasn't like, let me just swat you, let me just use what's handy.
Right.
It was, you seeing right here, I'm going to be right back. Oh my God. And when Mom said that was hard. That was hard when Mom said that. And she came after me with the belt, and I jumped. Here's the lesson, boys and girls. I know it's an 18 and up podcast. We say that. Technically, it should be 21 and up because we're drinking, but I say 18 and up.
Well, you don't have to be of legal age. You
don't have to be of legal age to listen to people drink. Exactly. So yeah, I was gonna be slick, dude. I was gonna be super slick and jump the hurdle over the belt.
Right.
And I did. She smooth missed me. Went around, and when I came down, my heel came down on the edge of the bed.
You did not stick that landing.
I did not stick the landing. Mary Lou Retton, I was not. Look great in tights. Can't stick the landing.
Yeah, I remember that. Had to go to the emergency room,
get stitches.
Next time, keep
buddy,
your ass still.
And buddy,
take your licks.
Yep. And oh man, I was pouring it on too. I remember the doctor came. Oh, what happened? She was trying to spank me, and I jumped over it and hit the bed. He said, "Well, what'd you learn? Maybe next time you just take the pop instead of having to come here and get some stitches."
That's...
And it's an absolute truth, and it's, to me, what this case brings about is, like I said, the concept. At the beginning, we played the clip from the MSNBC host. Your children belong to the collective. You always hear this concept of it takes a village to raise a child.
Right.
That is a beautiful and true concept. If you're a village society. If you're a society that's a village, if you're a society that's fully cooperative with each other, if you're a society that lives around a campfire, everybody is in it to win it together, that's not the society that we live in anymore. That was a phrase that I think was really apt and usable in our parents' age, back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, where everyone on the street that you lived on knew each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like, knew each other.
Right.
You know, not just like, oh, there's that dude with his freaking Christmas lights up.
Right.
And that's all you know him as is Christmas light. What's up, Christmas light?
Right.
How you doing, Icicle? You know? That's not the case, though. We don't... I'm fortunate, and I take the effort to actually meet my neighbors, get to know my neighbors, things like that, because it is a safety thing. It is a safety thing. It's something of, when you know your neighbors, you tend to live in a safer place, because whenever you leave, they're going to be like, hey, that car doesn't belong there.
Right.
I've never seen that car there.
Right.
What's that doing parked there? You know?
Right.
And at least maybe they'll give you a shout. Hey, you got somebody at your house?
Right.
You know? Things like that. They help you look out for each other. You help each other out. Just like Papa, whenever we were kids, gave his neighbors bags of groceries from his garden. Stuff like, hey, it's just going to go bad. Here, have a bag of groceries. You know? Here's a whole bunch of beets and radishes and lettuce and some frozen squirrel and, you know, everything.
Exactly.
And that's what neighbors were. And we've talked about the concept of neighbor on this show before, and the fact that the concept of neighbor in this country has slowly waned away. Now, like, you live out here on a private road, and you know all of your neighbors intimately. Every one of them.
Yeah, for the most part.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know them all.
Yeah.
I
mean, it's not like you go and have coffee with them and all that kind of stuff.
No, I don't.
But, hey, you share a property line. Y'all talk.
Yeah. Oh, we see each other on the road. Wave every time we drive by, roll the window down, talk through the cars, you know.
How many times do we sit out here having a butt and a beer on the patio, and it's like, the hell car is that coming down this private road?
Right. Yeah.
I ain't seen that car.
Right.
You know? And it's that neighbor mentality of be alert, something different is happening.
Right.
And that, you know, I don't know, to me, the take a village to raise a child takes an actual village. It takes a bunch of people making a concerted effort together to make something.
Right.
And that just doesn't exist anymore. That's not...
Yeah, not really. I mean, there was a time, I think, where it was accepted that your neighbors knew your business, that your neighbors could come over, you know, the ones you liked anyway.
Sure.
Could come over completely unannounced anytime.
Yeah, drop by.
Go by, visit, have coffee on Sundays.
Yeah.
There's still some mentality like that. But I don't know, you know, just because like you said, I live out here.
You got about 6 neighbors
on property.
You get about
it's
6
not like I live in a
neighbors, bro.
cul-de-sac in a neighborhood with 1,000 other people.
Yeah, you don't pay HOA fees. Nothing like that's happening.
I know people who do.
You're not like me and Amy, where we're apartment dwellers and we're sharing walls with our neighbors.
Right. But even when I did live in a neighborhood, 7 or 8 years ago, we knew our neighbors. Yeah. We knew our neighbors well. We knew their vehicles and all that.
Yeah.
Didn't have coffee with them every weekend, but knew their names.
You talked over the fence.
Yeah.
How's it going, buddy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but never did I have the expectation that they would help me to
rear your children.
Right.
Yeah.
Or that I expected them to keep an eye. Now they did. They would keep an eye on things.
Sure.
At the time, the kids weren't old enough to be, out running the neighborhood by themselves and stuff that.
But, yes and no.
Granted, but also
sometimes a naked kid might just find his way around to go buy some ice cream. You never know.
Hop
on his bike and say, "I need some ice cream from the corner store."
Right.
I'm gonna ride on.
Granted, the street that we lived on had very few children on it.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like one of these neighborhood streets where you've got a dozen kids and a dozen houses.
Exactly. We grew up as apartment rats, and there's definitely the crew that runs around in apartments. That's just how it happens. But I definitely remember senior high school, my freshman year was the first year in my educational experience where we did not have corporal punishment.
Oh, really?
where corporal punishment was not allowed in the school anymore.
Okay.
And I definitely saw the difference between the way my friends behaved in school. But from the ones that, because, I mean, hey, we all had the friends. We all knew people that they knew John. John was the principal.
That would have been my senior year. And you know what's oddly enough is the year after that. I remember coming back, as a freshman in college.
Yeah.
Come back and see some of my teachers and stuff. And baseball caps had been banned.
Yep.
You weren't allowed to wear your baseball cap.
Nope. Because of gangs.
No.
I remember the first gang-related shooting in Spring Branch was over at Springwoods High School. Some kid had been threatened by a couple gang members, brought a .22 to school, and it went off in his backpack and shot a kid in the bus.
Yeah.
And that was the first gang. And, it wasn't even like, hey, what's up, fool? Pam! Shot in the parking lot. This kid was just bringing it to school in case some jam happened because he'd been threatened by these guys and he wasn't even part of a gang.
Right.
And it went off on the bus and shot a kid. That was the first gang-related shooting in Spring Branch, West Houston. And that was 1991.
Yeah.
That was right then. And if you remember, we used to have pep rallies where it was Go Texan Day.
Right.
And you could bring your freaking toy guns on your hip. Pow, 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 cow guns, yeah! No, not anymore.
No.
You couldn't even wear a cowboy hat because that might mean you were affiliated in some kind of cowboy gang.
Right.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. Yeah, it was literally
Glock,
because
Glock.
of gangs. Glock, Glock, fizz, fizz. But,
God.
yeah, I mean, but it definitely changed. And I mean rapidly, man.
Yeah.
Rapidly. By the time I was a senior, it was 180 degrees discipline-wise in the classroom and the way that kids treated teachers. Everything.
Right.
Everything. And that was a 3-year time span. That's a 3-year time span. So you start looking at it now. Now we're looking at it within a generation. We've got a generation of kids that have been coming out. Heck, Omar Mateen is one of them.
Yep.
The shooter in Orlando.
Yep.
And he was kicked out of high school for celebrating the 9/11 attack whenever it happened. All kinds of stuff. And it's one of those, how do you deal with the discipline? How do you deal with disciplining a child when you aren't giving them discipline? You're giving them no sense of consequence at a very young age, other than go sit there and think about what you did.
Right. Well, that worked a lot of the times for us, but
sure.
when we went and sat in the corner, it was on our knees for about
exactly.
45 minutes.
It was you go sit your ass on that hard tile floor on your knees in the corner, and I don't want to see your butt touch your feet.
Right.
And if they do, fly swatter.
And that's probably considered cruel and unusual punishment.
It's considered abuse now, I guess. And I don't know. To me, that is something that is a sacred bond between... And I'll get biblical with it. Spare the rod, spoil the child.
I was just thinking the same thing.
Spare the rod, spoil the child. And that's exactly what that phrase in the Bible means. Is if you don't discipline...
Right.
You will spoil the batch.
Well, and it's not, it's not if you don't discipline with a timeout chair.
That's right.
Or a timeout pad.
That's right.
It's spare the rod, as in, if you don't
cane them, if you don't cane them,
if you don't,
that's a rod.
That's right.
A rod is a fucking switch.
I understand.
Make no mistake.
And I've had to cut my fair share of switches before.
I've definitely cut my fair share of switches. Don't bring a tiny one. Because it's hard to walk when that ass is sore, son.
I have to make you go get another one.
That's right. You gotta get 10 licks out of this thing.
Oh, man.
But, the question is, what happens to society? Where does it start to break down? What's the point where we start seeing this switch that people no longer see a consequence to action?
Yeah.
And what's funny is that the people that you're supposed to be looking up to, the the politicians, the people that you're supposed to be aspiring to, they're doing the same damn thing.
Right. What's funny is...
And getting away with it. So where's the consequence? When the consequence isn't there for the idol that the kid looks up to, and then he's not getting disciplined, what's the consequence?
Right. Yeah. No.
Go ahead, Randy. Yeah. You were going to say something.
Yeah, I was just sitting here thinking, this mom in several points in this article, just this one article I read, talking about how remorseful she was. I don't think in the times that I've had to seriously discipline my kids, and I can guarantee that our dad, our mom, and our grandparents, and anybody who's ever had to discipline
spank a kid,
not spank or get angry with, or any kind of harsh discipline that a lot of times is probably called for, does not hear those things echo in their head for years.
Yep.
It hurts to discipline.
It does.
It does. Nothing pains, and I would venture to say in probably 99.9% of the case. There's probably some parents, probably some whack jobs that get off on torturing, kids and making, that kind of stuff. But almost any parent I can imagine, if they've had to discipline their kids, hates to do it.
Yeah.
They hate to do it. They know.
That's the last thing that you want to do. You don't want to make yourself out to your kid. You don't want to be you feel like a bully when it happens. Like,
right.
I don't have children, but I've taught children. And I've taught, like I said, ages 4 to 40. And I'll admit it, when I taught junior high school, I wasn't allowed to discipline anybody, but what I was allowed to do was make the classroom rules. I didn't make them. I let the kids make them.
Yeah.
That makes it so that when I enforce it, dude, I'm just a police officer here, man.
Right.
I didn't make the rule. You made the rule. You disobeyed it. I would literally send a junior high boy, and one of the rules that always came up was don't ever call people's ideas stupid. Absolutely. And when it happened, I would call him out on it and be like, John, I think you need to hop over there into the chair and sit down for a few minutes and think about why you called Susie's idea stupid.
Right.
And, I'm not going to go sit. Well, you can either hop over there for about 5 minutes, or we can ring the bell, call Miss Francis, and you can go sit in her office, and me, you, and your mom can sit down and talk about what happened in class tonight. And it would blow teachers' minds that I would do that to a junior high kid.
Right.
And that I would never, not only would I not have a problem with that kid for the rest of the year, I wouldn't have a problem in my class for the rest of the year.
Right.
Because when you do that to a junior high boy in front of a bunch of girls, there ain't a junior high boy in there that's going to go sit in that fucking chair.
Right. Right.
Not a single one. And they know you mean business now, and they actually respect you.
Right. That's the thing.
And it's the fact of, you didn't make that rule. They made that rule.
Yeah. Like you said, it's not like mom walked around with a belt on her hip or dad or anything like that. But that's one thing the discipline I did receive.
Yeah.
I never begrudged them once.
No.
Once.
I deserved every lick I ever fucking got, dude.
Right.
And that's the game.
Even
game.
I didn't set anyone's fences on fire. I didn't go break into neighbors' homes.
I didn't break into homes.
Right. I did stuff like talk back,
Yeah.
and I'll remember to the day I die, and I tell my kids this all the time, roughhousing around at Papa and Mama's house one time. Yep. I forget what we were doing, but wound up just by accident, or probably just playing around or whatever, smacking mom in the face. It was completely just play. Completely just play. But I'll remember for my entire life, our grandfather, Papa, looking at me and saying, you ever put your mom...
Taking you aside.
You ever put your hands on your mother's face again, you'll be talking, you'll be dealing with me.
Me and you are going to talk,
right.
And it ain't going to be a talk.
Right. Exactly.
It ain't going to be a talk. And you were about 15.
I don't even think I was that old.
No, you couldn't have been, because he passed away when I was about 11.
Yeah, no, it was like 10, 11, something like that, just goofing around and, and that kind of discipline was accepted.
That's right.
And it stuck with me.
Yeah.
And it's been a lifelong lesson. I think these kids learned a lesson. I think this mom learned a lesson that, you can... There's a point at which you can only go so far, and there's a consequence. And, I think the kids learned, I hope, anyway. I hope that they would have learned that you do something like this that is completely and utterly wrong.
Against all rules of society.
Right. Completely and utterly wrong. There's a consequence for it. And I hope that getting a spanking, even, one that in this particular case might have been a little bit harsh.
Yeah.
That getting a spanking from your parent and all the stuff that they've had to deal with since then.
Yeah.
I hope that the lesson that they learn is that this is wrong, and hopefully it keeps them out of more trouble in the future.
Exactly.
I think there's a lot of people out there that would say, this type of discipline and all of that, all it's going to do is raise kids that are, used to hitting and used to violence and all that.
I wouldn't say so, though, because
you may not say so, but I think there's a lot of people who would.
Here's the thing, is that, and the families as well as I do that had numerous children.
Right.
Even looking at us, we are both brought up by the same parents, both brought up in the same situation, and yet still we are totally independent people. We've both had different problems in our life. We've both had different issues. I myself set the neighbor's back fence on fire by accident.
Right.
You never did anything like that. You skipped school and went to the zoo. I never did anything like that.
Right.
It's the fact of every person is individual, even though you're raised by the same society. And even if you're raised by the same village, it's the fact of every person is individual, that discipline is going to take a different route with everybody.
Right.
And given the same discipline, it's going to give a different result with everybody.
Right. I think so. I hope these, I hope the kids have learned this lesson that, and who knows? Maybe all the media attention, maybe the social media attention, helps to curb some of that. Maybe.
Sure.
Maybe that's the reason behind it all, or maybe that's when you say the reason behind it all, maybe there's a reason for that, or maybe there's something good that can come of this.
Yeah.
That maybe that's it, and that this mom learns too that even though that there are times, in my opinion, that a little bit of corporal punishment is warranted.
Yes.
That
in cases of extreme unction, yes.
Yeah, or something that warrants, in my mind, breaking into your neighbor's house.
Yeah.
At 10, 12, and 13 warrants a spank on the butt.
Yeah, and I mean there is an age where that stops. There is an age where a different form of punishment needs to be taken. A different form of punishment needs to be used. But definitely to me at least, and of course to you, there is a means for corporal punishment. There is a need for it to an extent.
I think the goal or the hope is that by the time that age is reached, this type of lesson
doesn't need to be taught.
Has taken root.
Exactly.
And that lesson has been learned by that age. And that's what, I hope this mom's learned a lesson too.
Yeah.
That, I think that perhaps in times when a reaction like this is warranted, that something as less damaging as an RCA or RCA cable
Sure, a hand, a belt, a
hand,
shoe.
a belt, shoe.
Sandal, preferably.
You know.
Heck, even a wooden spoon if used properly.
You know.
Preferably one with a hole in the middle.
I think everyone after this has learned the lesson, and I know this mom has. I know that this type of remorse.
Yeah.
And I know even the most staunch, hands-off parenting people out there have had moments where they have disciplined their kids and have been remorseful because they've had to get angry with them. Nobody wants to get angry with their kid. Nobody wants to look at that face, the face of their child, and see that fear, that knowledge of disappointment.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to look at their kids and see that, no matter what form of discipline you've done. And so I know this mom has learned that lesson too.
That's right.
At least I feel that.
That's right. And my heart goes out to her. And the fact that an angel came and was there at the jail bailing somebody else out, saw the news and bailed her out to get her back with her children, to get her back. And now this woman has a criminal record. Like, now this is there. I don't know.
Does she have a criminal record?
Well,
she hasn't gone to court yet.
You're going to have a criminal record. Like, it's going to happen.
Well,
I'm sorry. It's still going to pop up.
Let's say it'll be in the system.
It's going to pop up.
Yeah.
You go to lease a house, it's going to pop up. Yeah. The fact is, I know that this woman did things in the best of intentions.
Right.
And really, in society, we have to look at things and realize the fact that children do belong to their parents. They belong to their family. They don't belong to a collective. If we were a proper collective, if we were a proper communist society, to put it in the truest, most beautiful sense, the fact that we are in it for a community, not for some selfish reason, then, the society would be raising the child. But the reality is, it's the parent.
Right.
It's the parent. And you got to give it to Shaquana Spears of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. My heart goes out to you. My heart is with you. My soul is with you in what you've done and what you were, where your heart and your intention was.
Right.
And
mine does too.
To me, any single mother of 6 children is doing the damn level best she can just to keep a roof over their head and stay at work every day and make sure that her kids are actually going to school and being there and doing what they're supposed to be doing. And the fact that these kids haven't ended up in some sort of horrible situation before this is absolutely amazing and fantastic, even in a 2-parent home these days.
Yeah, no, it's hard.
And the fact that their kids didn't get shot in the robbery, the fact that stuff, the horrible situations that could have happened didn't happen.
And before anyone gets all uppity about citizens having guns, they could have easily, probably more easily been shot unwittingly.
That's right. By
the authorities.
That's right.
Okay, it happens. It could happen.
Yep.
If there's so many other ways it could have gone worse.
Yeah.
And I think that's something maybe people need to think about.
Yeah.
Like you said, my heart goes out to this mom.
That's right.
My heart goes out to her kids. If what we've read is to be believed, this isn't something that they make a habit of doing.
Yeah.
Probably something stupid.
Yeah.
That they've done, maybe the first time.
Yep.
And what a nightmare it's turned into. And hopefully it all works out for the best. And, like you said, my heart goes out to her. My heart goes out to her kids. And I'll be praying for them.
Yep.
That they all learned some lessons.
Yeah.
And
and that they can all learn to be a better family, and look out for each other, look out for each other's best interests, look out for each other's reputation in the community as a family. and the fact that the children learn to understand the fact that their mother is doing level best that she can to provide for them on a daily basis,
right.
and that everything that they can do to support that and help with that is what it takes to be a proper family unit.
Right.
And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to call that it for this episode of Dudes and Beer. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for all the great listens that we've had. Tune in on Spreaker. Tune in on SoundCloud. Tune in on YouTube now. All kinds of stuff. Until next time, everybody, Randy Jordan is our guest. Whoop. I am Chris Jordan, your host. This is Dudes and Beer. Take care, everybody. If you can't be good, be good at it.
You've been listening to the Dudes and Beer podcast. Visit us online at www.dudesandbeer.com. Find our audio streams on soundcloud.com and spreaker.com/Dudes and Beer. Follow us on Facebook /Dudes and Beer. Thanks for listening, everybody. And until next time, drink responsibly.